各位观众朋友，大家晚上好，欢迎来到我们这个时段的百个大家讲。相信大家从8点半开始，如果开始守候我们的今天的直播，就知道这一段节目呢会访问2位有族的专家。在我还没有介绍这个接下来的这个来宾的时候呢，我再一次提醒我们的观众朋友，如果你有任何疑问的话，欢迎你在我们的留言区，可能留言你有什么意见呐、或者疑问都可以提出。那主持人在适合的时候呢，会将你的这个提问呢，就是传给我，然后再让我由我来向我们今天2位这个主讲人做提问。接下来再一次提醒大家，我们接下来这个环节呢是用英文来进行，所以如果真的有什么疑问的话，就在留言区里面可能可以让我们的制作人知道。好，现在我们就要开始了。Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this section of the special live show produced by PocketTimes. If you just join us now, it's basically a live show. We will be interviewing experts, analysts, to help our voters or our audience to better understand or to make a better informed decision in this coming GE15. So in this section, we have actually invited 2 very astute, very sophisticated speakers, each like expert in their field. They will be sharing with us the Malay Muslim vote in GE15. Why is it so important? So if we look at GE18, So why is it so important? If we look at G14 in 2018, the ethnic Malay vote was split between Pakatan Harapan. They have gotten about 25 to 30% of the votes. Barisan Nasional, 35 to 40% of the vote. PAS, 30 to 33% of the vote. And this year, we'll be expecting the vote to split between UMNO, Pakatan Harapan, Perikatan Nasional, and of course, Pejuang. So it's very, very fierce competition. So to grasp Malaysia politics is of course very, very important to understand how the Malay populace is going to react or respond or actually come out to vote in this coming GE15. For this purpose, today we have on my right, Professor Tajuddin Rasdi. He's a lecturer in a private university and also a commentator, very vocal. We have and a lot of his thoughts, I think, very much read by readers of Sinchiew Daily. He's one of our columnists and on my Sinchiew as well. On my left is actually Dr. Rais Hussin. He is he's the CEO of Emir Research, an independent think tank focused on strategic policy recommendation based on rigorous research. A lot of data to support, according to your Twitter. So welcome both. Welcome, Dato, and welcome, Professor. It's good to have you both. I think this year round in the in GE15, the Chinese voters are actually quite disillusioned. So a lot of people are talking about not coming out to vote, or maybe their ideas of going to cast a spoiled vote. I don't know, maybe just for a start, what is your read towards the sentiment of the voters? What kind of turnout can we expect for the Malay Muslim voters, just for a start? Professor, do you want to start?
Okay. Hello. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank Sinchiew for inviting me to this forum. And usually this kind of forum will not happen at the universities. And that's why I said the places like Sinchiew or Sinar Harian, Emir Research, Merdeka Center, for me are the new universities. Because actually in Islam, knowledge is supposed to change society, not simply to make the scholars become more and more important. Now, before the Rafizi came into the scene, I would have declared that it's going to be a one-sided battle. But after Rafizi coming into the scene, I think it has sparked a lot of interest. And from the comments that I see on many issues, I think the excitement is building up. And even among the young, my children, in fact, they are all excited to vote. and they, you know, the, what do you call it just now, AVR, the automatic voter
yes.
registration. And so I think along much of this situation is all about how we have to understand that it is us that actually the kingmakers. Okay, it is not GTA or it is not Warisan. We are the kingmakers, and so, and also I always say that the our country, our fault. Okay, don't blame politicians like Mahathir or Zahid Hamidi. Now we built them in many ways that I can explain how we have let such things happen. And so there is no excuse for what was the word they said, tiredness of voting. You know, there's no excuse of that, because whatever happens to this country, it is on us. It is not on the civil servant. It is not on the politician, because the civil servant is supposed to be servant to us, and then the politician are supposed to be wakil kepada rakyat. You know, not wakil kepada party. So I'm upbeat about the situation from based on the comments that I have read on issues. It's different before Rafizi came up to the scene and after.
Okay. So I think that's like a milestone that you have observed, something that's different after Rafizi came into the picture. How about Dato', what do you think? Yep. Yes. Is it on?
Is it on?
Can maybe.
Okay, I think now we got it.
Yeah.
I would echo what Prof have just said. The society is, or the leaders are the reflection of the society. So if the society wants certain leaders to be there to lead them, then that's how it's going to be. We have 21 million voters
Yes.
that's going to go into GE15. 50.3% are new voters, the young and the AVR voters. They are going to make a sizable chunk of this voting for the first time. Now, historically, trends have shown whenever there's voters turnout that is low, below 60%, then it will favor a certain political parties, usually BN. Why? We must remember our constituencies have been draconianly gerrymandered for 6 decades or more. 30% of the voters are determining 70% of parliamentary seat. This is something that we must remember. An example, in Putrajaya, you have about 5,000 voters, 1 seat. You have Tambun, about 165,000 voters, 1 seat. This is what we call the art of gerrymandering, and it has been done for decades. So the 30% determining 70% representation in parliament means that certain political coalition have an advantage in any electoral process. In GE14, there was a tectonic shift in that particular number. That is 18 to 23% shift in the Malay voters. Now let's look a little bit more. Of this 78 seats, that is Malay majority seat, 43 is almost more than 90% Malay majority. This is what we call the Felkra deposits, which Pakatan Harapan did some serious inroads in GE14. Is that going to be repeated now? So that's why I would hearken all the voters to come out and vote. You want a change. You want to move away from the situation that we are in now. Corruption, brain drain, food security. These are all real serious issues, cost of living issues. Come out and vote for a change. If you do not come out and vote, don't whine later. You know, don't whine later. Ah, lama saya, you know, tak boleh. If you want a change, for a better Malaysia, come out and vote. Whoever you're going to vote, that is your right. But come out and vote. At least there will be some semblance of democracy. Because remember, democracy did give us Hitler. So many people forgot that conveniently. Democracy is one ideology that can easily be gamed in any, whether it's working or non-working. So I would stop at that for now. And thank you for having me here today.
You're more than welcome. I think you mentioned about the tectonic change, that heartland, the Malay heartland, that Pakatan Harapan has managed to make some inroads into it. So maybe just for a start, to let us understand the Malay Muslim voter psychic a little bit, because from an outsider point of view, there are a few Malay-based or what we call the identity-based political party, so such as UMNO, Bersatu, PAS, Perjuang, and maybe to a certain extent Amanah as well, no matter how progressive they claim they are. But so my question is actually, like, they seem to be championing the same cause. How do they appeal to the Malay Muslim voters? What would you think is their unique proposition, or do you think there's none actually? They are so similar.
Okay, Malay is a very simple people. Muslim or Islam is also a very simple religion. Make it complicated by the people who profess that they know Islam. That's the problem. Identity politics is going to be at the apex in G15, you like it or not. Every one of them wants to be the champion of Malay or Islam. Now, let us dive down a little bit. Who is the Malays? Who are the Malays, right? So you have the urban Malays, the semi-urban Malays, and the rural Malays. And when you talk about these three segments of the Malays, urban Malays and semi-urban Malays, by and large, they are very well versed with what is happening, right? They know what's happening to 1MDB or what happened to 1MDB. They know the ship did not appear, though payments have been made, 6 billion. They know those kind of things. They know. They know the issues of corruption. They know the issues of malfeasance. They know the issues of mismanagement. Obviously, they are looking for a better administration, better governance, better integrity, and all that. So these are the urban Malays and semi-urban Malays. When you come to rural Malays, that is where the challenge lies, because they go there and talk about, this land is going to be taken away from under your nose. Whereas we know from the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, through the military, to the civil servant, to most of the ministers, the chief ministers are all Malays, right? So the fear tactic has been used profusely by the identity politic guys. Please do not get me wrong. If there's a party like Bersatu or UMNO, and they want to champion the issue of race, I am not totally antagonistic towards it, but not in the expense of the others. Okay. You know, so everyone has a focus. No matter, you talked about Amanah just now, we have DAP as well. DAP by and large is a Chinese majority party, right?
Actually, MCA as well.
Yeah. So again, MCA as well. Yeah. So their focus is also there. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that having a focus on a certain race or a certain religion, it is perfectly all right, but not in the expense of others. I think that is very, very key in anything. Then coming to Islam, the Muslims, Islam is presented in many ways. Only today I wrote an op-ed on political of Laknat, right? This guy called Hadi Awang, who wears turban and mostly green and white color shirt, always talks about what? Everybody else is kafir. Everybody else is Laknat. Everybody else is wrong. And he's the only one who has the ability to be righteous, be pious, be able to advocate what is right and what is wrong. This is totally wrong. In Islam, where is the rahmah? Where is the mercy? These are the things that we need to understand. So, conveniently using race and religion for the parochial interests of themselves is something that is unfortunately still saleable in rural market of the Malays. But when it comes to urban and semi-urban, it's a little bit more challenging because they ask you questions again. So I think you will see a mix of this. And the youth, they are not brand loyal. They couldn't care less whether this or that. They care only what is for me. Job, good job, no, not just a logistic job, whatever. Good job, credible job, good education. Reasonable cost of living. I can get married and have an apartment. Those kind of things. So this is quite a dynamic approach, and unfortunately, in GE15, the identity politics of race and religion is going to dominate.
Not so looking forward to it, but we kind of see it coming. So Dato sort of like explained the segmentations of different Malays and how the political party might appeal to them. Professor, do you have anything to add on in terms of this? Like, how does this political party that's in existence actually appeal to the existing voters, the Malay Muslim voters?
Well, I want to give a different or an alternative view to what Rais have said. And the traditional held view has always been that so-called quote-unquote educated Malays, quote-unquote urban Malays, so educated equals urban more or less. That has always been the case. But we must remember that the Congress Maruah Melayu was held by universities. Okay? And if somebody were to ask me, are Malays educated? I say even the professors at public universities are at the same level of competence with regard to the village folks. When it comes to issue of Chinese, when it comes to issue of DAP, when they come to issue of Christianity, all this, they are at the same level of competence. So when we also hear something like, recently about UKM, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, first university that has been produced during the formation of Malaysia, right? And the Sari issue, okay? How can that happen to a university yang dinamakan University Kebangsaan Malaysia? And one of my friends also even sent a video of some academics or high-level leadership wearing this hulu balang Melayu, and they are doing this bersilat like the Mat Kilau punya, movies, and it's called Sumpah Anak Watan. And I'm just confused. I mean, is this University Kebangsaan Melayu or is this University Kaum Melayu? Because University Kebangsaan Malaysia is supposed to celebrate the Malaysia part. Kebangsaan Malaysia, nation building. And if you were to interpret it within a very narrow construct of Malay, even Malays, I wrote and said that even Hang Tuah had to learn 12 languages. They are very cosmopolitan, very wide. Only Malays, particularly in public universities, are very narrow in their understanding. So I think this idea about urban Malays being totally different and well educated in that sense, I think may have to have another look, because as I said, when I mix around and there are WhatsApp group, let's say teachers especially, teachers are very, very protective of Islam, and you see, because the problem with the Malay society is that they are taught that you can only learn Islam from the ustaz. If you learn Islam from books, then there's something wrong with you, So these are taught to children, and unfortunately, the Malays who had gone through Dasar Ekonomi Baru like myself have grown older, and now they are getting closer to religion. Okay, and by getting closer to religion, they hire ustaz to come to their house, and these ustaz, not through their own vindictiveness, but through their own teaching, only teach the idea of Islam for Muslim. They don't have an idea about Islam for nation building. I wrote an article in Sinchiew I tested myself. Can I argue that Rukun Islam, the 5 tenets of Islam, is for nation building? I could. As I said, if you accept Muhammad, you must accept the whole line of prophet from Malays think Muhammad woke up and then produced Islam just like that. So this generation that now coming into retirement and having money and all that, they're looking to religion. And the Islamic reformists like Abim and Ikram that started this wave, when they did that, they wanted for the Malays to have a different idea of looking at themselves, not just race. Open up. It's Islam. It's more global. It's more inclusive of others and things like that. But unfortunately, another wave came, and this wave is hijacked by the conservative. And this is how we are in where we are. I have written and said that the next conflict will be on Islam. Islam will be the next battleground.
If I may, I don't think it's conservative. I think it's the deviationist. Because I think Islam is never like what this group of people that call themselves conservative portraying themselves. I think they are deviationists because Islam abhors racism, for instance. We all know. It's a matter of fact. It's in the Quran. It has been explained very carefully in the Hadith and so on and so forth. So that's very clear. Islam is against corruption, for instance. Very, very clear. No arbitrary in understanding. But why these things are not really being put forward in the public space? Why? Because this does not fit into their narrative of what they want Islam to be portrayed as. And they need a punchback. Who's the punchback? DAP. Those kind of things. So I think I've worked with many DAP personalities. I must say that many of their principles are a lot more Islamic than those people who claims that they are Islam, number one. Of course, one of the things that post-GE15 happened was, because of the initial euphoria, there's a lot of things was done quickly, right? Without due consideration of the feelings of the majority. So because of that, there was a pushback. But I hope if should GE15 shows the same way as GE14, then I think the initial euphoria must be accompanied by rational thinking, and the way the response must be meticulous, careful, and inclusive.
I think both are quite enlightening. I think you provide a different perspective of how we understand Islam, which again and again, some people have tried to highlight that, what Islam should be in a lot of different forum and avenue. But coming back to our discussion, actually, Professor, we have an audience actually has a question for you. I think this is also part of our understanding of how the Malay psychic is. UNPC said, welcome, Professor Dr. Tajuddin. Read a lot of your articles. May I know how's the response to your article normally, especially those that think Malay rights should come first? I think this is kind of like a good question because it's kind of set the tone, and I think a lot of people might think that, Professor, what you have offered, the view that you have offered might represent a small portion of the Malays who are much more progressive or more open-minded, but I don't know, maybe you can explain this a little bit more.
Well, basically, I have actually given up talking to the Malays. What I have decided to do is simply to become the bridge between the non-Malays and the idea of Islam and nation building. I'm a very simple person. If the Malays do not want to listen to a person like me on the ideas of Islam coming from the Prophet, because I read more hadith than any of this, even the so-called ustad. That's why I can challenge them in any issue that they want to raise, Bon Odori, October Fest, whatever, I can do that. And I don't really need muftis telling me what to do. I don't need muftis telling me who to vote. I don't need muftis telling me all these things, because these muftis and these ustad, they come from a very narrow construct of learning. I respect that they have learned something from the past 600 years old kitab. but you have not learned about what is called nation building, about democracy. And so I think the idea here, when you are someone having certain knowledge, it is not as important to get people to be influenced by you. It is more important that you explain things. And even in the Quran, it says that you are here only to explain. You know, this conversion thing, I've never tried to convert anybody. I mean, that's not the business. So it's about explaining. And not about Islam alone. I said that after 20 years of writing and also analyzing, I said simply, all of us, our 40 ethnic group, we just don't know each other. That's basically it, okay? And that's why when I shift my writing to, look, we are the one responsible, we are the one having to build Malaysia, people think that I don't like to blame politicians. No, I mean the politicians simply feed on the ignorance of the people. So that's why when GE15 came, a lot of people wanted to change very fast and putting in drastic changes, wanting ITM to immediately turn into a different kind of university. I mean, this one takes time. And then it's not only taking time, I said, and I wrote to Mujahid Rawa, in an article saying that you must have 100 of these ustaz sent overseas, and so that they can live in as a minority. Only they, after understanding how this, then when they come back after learning courses like communication, anthropology, and sociology, they widen their understanding. So I've always said that Malays and Muslims are not bad people. It's just that they have been educated like that, and they think that that is the right way. It is the right way for Islam and for Muslim, but not for nation building. And unfortunately, many of those who's writing the kutubah, which I analyze a lot, there is hardly, if I were to do a PhD on Friday sermon and nation building, I can map how the Malays think from the topics that are given out, and I will tell you, nation building is not part of it. Okay? Nation building, I mean a simple topic like sharing values between different faiths, it's not there, because of the fear that Islam will be seen as equal to other faiths. I mean, why are you using this word equal or better than? I mean, I never used this word in my entire life as an academic. I don't see anybody as less than me. They are all different. Is your wife important to you? Well, she's different. It doesn't come into. That's why I like what Ajahn Brahm has said. He asked the question, when he asked the question, I said, who is the most important person in the world? When everybody thinks, oh, you're my mother. No, it's the person in front of you. Whoever is in front of you, he or she is the most important person. So if Najib is in front of her, he is the most important person. So this is what we call according dignity. And our industry-based education doesn't teach us to become humans. That the most important part about human is to give or accord dignity to others. And that's why tomorrow the Star will publish a vote for dignity. Marwah diri. And like Siddiq Fadil says in his speech, he said that, Tuhan ciptakan manusia dan manusia itu dimuliakan dan tidak boleh dia dimalukan. And so people calling DAP communist, non-Malays corrupt. I mean, this is certainly not part of Islam that I know.
I actually have a question on DAP. It's actually sort of like a scenario thingy. So someone told me, I don't know whether it's a political analyst or someone, they said that, if we put two candidates be in front of the Malay Muslim voters, and one perhaps is a Chinese candidate from MCA, but the other one is a Malay candidate fielded by DAP, they might still go for the Chinese candidate. The Malay Muslim vote might go for the Malay candidate. What's your take on this? Do you think, because there is a lot of fear and insecurity among the Malay Muslim community from what I've read, and also, especially on Twitter, the way that, they lambasted on DAP and the names that they call on DAP. Communist is it's a better word, but it's a better word. There are worse things that DAP has been called. So I wanted to know, like, you know, like, what kind of, like, what caused this insecurity, and how valid do you think this analysis could be?
I think you don't manage or analyze nation building through Twitter responses. Why? Because these days there is a flood of cyber troopers, and they are paid for tweets, and they probably have followers of less than 10, 15, 40, and their job is just to interrupt the entire Twitter process. So I think we need to be mindful of that, number one. Number two, depending where these candidates stand for election, if you take by and large an urban setting, I think the urban setting, people are a little bit, despite the fact that there are people like that, I mean, you can find thieves everywhere. So despite that situation, by and large, the urban setting, they will look at the candidate and see whether this candidate can actually represent and do them good. And also the political party. Then again, there are too many narratives these days. Let's take, for example, the Sungai Buloh constituency. It's a very hot constituency now. KJ has been, Hairi Jamaluddin has been assigned there. That place is about 60%, 62% Malay voters. And PKR has been winning, or Pakatan Harapan has been winning in the last 3 GEs. And they also have put in some candidate. So how now? How now? So these are the things. So we have one candidate like this, one candidate like this, one candidate like this. And Sungai Buloh is pretty much urban or semi-urban setting. So how would the vote will be? Of course, Pakatan Harapan saying one vote for KJ means one vote for Zaid Hamidi. KJ is replying one vote for KJ means one vote for KJ. So it's quite dynamic, and this is the first time I've been doing predictive analysis for GEs, for the last 4 GEs. And we got it very accurate for GE14, 95%. We got it accurate for PRN, Sabah, Johor, and Melaka, and also PRK. But this time around, we're finding it a little bit challenging. We have 50.3% of the new voters in, the AVR and the youth voters. Then, to access data is not easy as well. For the life of me, I cannot understand why SPR releases all data, like for instance, the age group. So you have the 21 million people, and you can see the age group, how many. But when it comes to the race, it is not there. And for the last 2 weeks, my team have been trying to call SPR to get this data, even buy them if possible. No answer. No. So I think we are talking about year 2022. We are talking about 4 IR, and some people are already talking about 5 IR. We are talking about the scandalous 5G deployment in Malaysia. People are talking about 6G elsewhere. So why cannot we make this data available online so everyone can go and check? So we talk about transparency, we talk about governance, we talk about integrity. I like vote with dignity. I think that is a very strong and profound, I'm looking forward to read that article. Now, coming back to a little bit of ground reality. You go back to Kampong. I mean, I've gone from Perlis to Sabah. I've been to the most inner part of the kampongs. And the way they think is totally different, right? You go to Sabah Sarawak, okay. Sabah Sarawak is totally a different, piece of, You take Peninsula, 165. Out of these, about 43, 48, more than 90% Malay. Right? You go and talk to them, right? The only thing that happened in G14, there was a little swing, as I said, 18 to 23%. That really helped Pakatan Harapan to secure. And I think there's a factor. At that time, Pakatan Harapan needs one more fit into as a jigsaw puzzle. Because you like it or not, identity politics for now is still there. At that time also it's still there. Bersatu played that role. And that gave the entire Pakatan Harapan a tilt over it. Now, GE15. The good news is that you talked about Rafizi. I was one of those who campaigned heavily on the Twitter world and also texting him directly, asking him to come back for one more time. He was a little bit disappointed at what happened before, but I said, look, forget about all that, come. It is important. Now, why it is important? Why it is important? When we do the numbers on corruption, I think, Prof, you were there for the launch of the buku, Corruption and Hypocrisy in Malay Muslim Politics, the Malay version by Tunku Sultan Perak. And we did some numbers to ascertain roughly what is the amount of money that is involved. So we took what the Auditor General report yearly for the last 25 years, Transparency International, and the Pakatan Harapan own think tank, and also studies from World Bank / IMF. So it is anything between 2% to 30%. So we took somewhere in the middle. Percentage of the GDP. It came about 1.8 trillion ringgit. 1.8 trillion ringgit the last 25 years. And economically speaking, if you invest in 1 ringgit, there should be a multiple of certain X, 1 or 2 or 3. So we took less than 1, so 1.2. 3 trillion ringgit has been wasted in corruption alone. And this is not small amount of money. Why this thing has happened? Because for decades, the institution has been completely neutralized. It is no longer the institution. Government institution at one point of time was something that we were proud of. You know, in many third world countries and developing countries, Malaysia is oft-cited as one of the countries that has very good public institution. That has been compromised. You know? So that is just corruption, right? There are many more things. Today, there are 5 things that people are looking for at any given time. MA Research does polls quarterly. Quarter on quarter, this is above 92%. One is cost of living, quality and affordable education, quality and affordable healthcare, credible employment. This is important, and also employment and housing. Credible and quality and affordable housing. These 5, it's so critical for all. This is what they want.
You mean all the segments?
Almost all the segments. They're very concerned. The National Worry Index is skyrocketed because they're so worried. It's the reverse of the National Happiness Index. So worried about the state of affairs. Now, if the people out there are saying that, never mind all that, we can persevere, tak ada makan tak apa. Selagi Melayu jadi Perdana Menteri, it's up to you. It's up to you. My view is this: in any event, a Malay Muslim is going to be the Prime Minister. In any event, right? Whether it's Pakatan Harapan, whether it's Barisan Nasional, whether it's Perikatan Nasional. So now you need to choose the ideology, the coalition that is going to bring you a solution to all this problem. Another problem, food security. I can go on and on. And many of the solution is now being brought forward on a workable. It's not like, no longer philosophical. Alama rasuah, alama itu, alama. No. Now it's workable. In fact, MA Research came up with a comprehensive food security plan. And I think one state that has started adopting it, and Tunku Sultan Perak has been working on this quite a bit and championing this food security. And it is doable. Are you aware that our arable land is defined as land for agro-food? Only 2%? One of the lowest in the world. I'm not talking about palm oil and all that, you cannot eat that. I'm talking about 2% agro-food, food. One of the low. Bangladesh, 22%. Kita, 2%. Do you know our net import, food security, food import is 65 billion ringgit annually. Are you aware that 1.2 million underemployed and unemployed youth and graduates, and 612,000 unemployed, 1.812 unemployed? Do we have land? Yes, we have. Do we, our land fertile? Yes, it is. Can we, do you know Chile? I always like to give you this example, it's the easiest, everybody knows what Chile. Chile, we are only self-sufficient 30%. 70% we are importing. So what happens when your ringgit depreciates? So for all these things, you need a government, or should I say administration, who is focused on people, not focused on themselves.
Okay, Dato, since you mentioned coalition, right, because there is a question actually on the coalition. I think like BN has already rejected DAP in a way as part of the component of Pakatan Harapan. Does
What, PN?
BN, Barisan Nasional, Barisan Nasional. So do you think that, you know, as we move forward in the case of, say, a hung parliament or a need to form an alliance with another coalition, do you think that there's only a formula between BN and PN?
My view is this. We've not got the final numbers yet. We are still working very hard on it. We are nearing it. God willing, 3 days before the election time, we will be able to ascertain. We are fairly accurate in many times, so I think fairly, number one. From what we see thus far, that is before BN announced its candidates. You see, there are some changes, before the BN of announcing the candidates and after the announcement. Because now we will see some internal sabotages and, blah, 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 and all that. So anyway, I think the number will change. My view as it stays now, it is moving towards none of them going to have single sufficient seats to form the government, and they need Sabah and Sarawak. Sabah and Sarawak, they, 31 and 25, they are very comfortable there, and they will do what they need to do. And they will win the winners. They'll join the winners, right? Here we have 165. So post GE15, I am sure there's going to be some coalition building, or I use the word coalition recalibration. So they might be whoever can accept whatever to form the government. Obviously, we all know that there's a BN, PN, and PH. So BN, PN they already form a government now, and we know what happened. They talk about stability and kemakmuran, prosperity, right? Okay. Now, my all question is always this: stability to what, right? Jokingly, sometimes I tell my friend, stability to plunder the prosperity? Just asking, it's just a joke, right? So that's the thing. So now, they are not stable when PN, BN together in the present government. Every day, no days went past by without some kind of abuses and this and that. So are we going to have the stability? So that is why the power is in the people. You want a stable government, you want a policy-driven government, you want a government who dive down into details and try to find solution, not piecemeal, not 1 million high-income paying jobs. The question is how? Not 1 billion food bank. Why do you need to create that kind of thing? You should create, I'm going to create a similar FELDA scheme for agro-food. I'm going to empower those youth that has no job. Make agri sexy again for the youth. Do you know for Chile 2 acres, every 3 months there's a yield, and do you know how much they can take home? 38,000 ringgit. So why all these things are not presented to the youth? 70% of Chile we are still importing, right?
I want to go and plant chili
Yeah.
now.
So I think what I'm trying to say is that there must be a realization, and that is where it comes. Bolehkah everyone understand the enormous responsibility in their hand? Can they, when they go to the voting hall or school or whatever, sit and mark, they are marking their future away. They need to understand this. So that's why I've been urging all the coalition, okay, no more this corruption, this, that, everybody knows, right? We are very famous now in the world, right? A case study in a textbook and very good, very bad. But what are the solutions that you are going to provide? I think one coalition has started talking about that in very detail, not in a macro perspective.
Okay, yeah, we are famous. We are always famous for the wrong reason, apparently. Professor, do you have anything to add? What do you foresee, like in a case of a hung parliament, or in a scenario, what kind of coalition would be formed?
Yes. Well, my answer is a bit more philosophical than the statistics that presented by Rais just now. I think regardless of whoever wins, I've already said this several years ago to a journalist when he said that if this party wins, this party, form coalition, things like that. I said, well, it doesn't really depend on the political parties who governs Malaysia. And the most important thing to me are two numbers. The first is the academics in the university. If you do not come out and say that, look, we could run. In fact, what your idea was about unemployed graduates working on, I call it the new Felda, having to do agriculture, giving them some feed money and then things like that. And then produce something like the kibbutz in Israel, I've already thought about that. So I think if the academics don't realize that the university should be what I call the test of First Nation, meaning all the ideas, all the discussions should be from there. But here the university is just self-serving. They just produce the graduates for the parents to be happy, and then they produce papers for them to get appointed to others and things like that. Now, if you don't come out and give these ideas, then who gets the ideas? You get people in the politician, and they have a different way of looking at things to serve themselves. So I've always said that the other aspect about it is about us as citizens. What are we going to do? I mean, if you're a Muslim, I keep telling people, when you are in the hereafter, when God asks you, why are you calling this DAP communist? He said, it's okay, the Ustad here told me, these people, if they are not Muslim. No, the Ustad said, you went to university. Okay, I didn't go to university. So they don't understand that everything they say, okay, first rule of religion, you are responsible for whatever you say. A simple rule like that. And these people don't know, okay? So this is the problem. And also back to us as a Malaysian, and Malaysian also need to understand, I said, you need to speak Bahasa Malaysia more. I mean, this conversation need to be in Bahasa Malaysia. Okay, not because I'm patriotic about Bahasa Malaysia. I mean, I said, Sinchiew pun tak ada dia punya Bahasa Malaysia section, pasal apa? Why are you trying to hide from the Malays? So I have to ask that question, kan? Okay, so jadi I think regardless of whoever wins, because that is whatever the formula you put across, whatever coalition you put across, kalau the rakyat is still the same, hang aku, lu gua, I mean that's basically it. The game is lost. So that's why I said that in a motivation, if you want to improve yourself, the first person to change is yourself. And also Gandhi says, you want nation to change, you have to be the change. Okay, so I said Sedara Malaysia having teachers, vernacular school, changing with if the government school doesn't want to do, you do it with the private school. And you have this change, and offering, let's say, to the madrasah, teaching economics, teaching some science or technology, something different, okay, or teaching culture or teaching art, for free for them to have, or even have camps. We do the change. So that's why I said that if you have the power, and I wrote it in the Star, I said the real power of change has always been with us. Okay, it's not with this politician. I don't really think they're that powerful. Okay, they're powerful because rakyat is stupid, point blank. Okay, or ignorant. Right? So always looking. I said this rakyat somehow has this feudal mindset. After they have been with the Raja, they now have to kiss the hand of the politician. Who asked you to kiss the hand of the politician? He's your servant. Who asked you to kiss the hand of the Ketua Setiausaha Negara? He's your other servant. Okay, so we need to educate our young people in order for them to change. Satu, about democracy. Kedua, about persaudaraan kewarganegaraan, meaning we are relatives of each other. Okay, so this is what I call the spiritual values of nation building. Okay, and also we have to teach them about a new history, a history where it binds us. Kalau 13 Mei, everybody is at fault. Don't concentrate on one. Kalau kejayaan di dalam Malaysia, everybody contributed. You know, all the cultures and the races and things like that. The universities doesn't want to teach, we teach at Sinchiew. Tak apa. Okay, the schools doesn't want to teach, we can have camps at the international schools or the private schools. We take charge of our country and we don't have to wait for any election or anybody waiting who's going to be the Prime Minister. I couldn't care less who's going to be the Prime Minister because we are the kingmakers, not them.
I think, Professor, you answered my last question because my last question is very much like, you know, what we have witnessed after Sheraton move, it's how the Malay unity agenda can bring down a democratically elected government, and that makes us famous for the wrong reason. So a lot of the questions in the comment section actually ask, who are going to educate the rural folks? Because you've mentioned a lot how, you know, they are psychic and their sentiment might be very different from the urban or the semi-urban Malay folks.
Well, what dia dekat Sinchiew lah? What's the problem?
Will they come? Will they come?
You have not tried.
I will try.
Okay, if I may just comment on this Sheraton move, right? Many people think it is because of the Malay unity. I have a different perspective to that, yeah? On Friday, the Sunday before that Sheraton dinner, on Friday they had the last PH Presidential Council meeting, chaired by Tun Mahathir. And in that meeting, Tun Mahathir got what he wanted. Despite all the hubla-hoo and, you know, people shouting and, you know, he got what he wanted. What was that he wanted? He will be a Prime Minister until after APEC 2020, November 2020, which is APEC 2020. And he decides when he's going to leave. That's the decision he got on Friday. On Sunday morning, there was a Bersatu Supreme Council meeting. In that Supreme Council meeting, he got also 3 decisions his way. Number 1, he decides whether Bersatu will leave Pakatan Harapan. He decides when that is going to happen, the timing, and he remains the sole candidate of Bersatu as a Prime Minister. Sunday night, the dinner happened at Sheraton. Monday around 9 a.m., he sent a resignation letter to the palace. None of the Supreme Council members knows Bersatu. None of the PH Presidential Council members knows. And none of us knew at the time. None. Including the President, which is the President now, Tan Sri Mohidin. So I kept on asking, you had the decision on Friday. You had a decision on Sunday morning. So what is the reason that you resign? My view of the entire thing is that it's different. So my belief is 3 things, why he did it. Number 1, he did not want to honor the transition agreement that he signed between all the top leaders, the 5 top leaders of Bersatu, PKR, DAP, Amanah, and who? These people, yeah? And he was the first one to sign the document. That document, I drafted it at that time, okay? So he doesn't want to honor the transition agreement. Secondly, he doesn't want the reform agenda to take place. Because if you look at the manifesto which I chaired as a manifesto writing committee, through 6 months laborious work, In that, 80% is reform, 20% is toll and this and that. Even toll pun we define. There are intercity toll and intra-city toll. Intercity toll is the plus highway lah, all the way to Perlis, to Johor. Intra-city is like LDP and all that. So we said that this intra-city is what we are going to focus on, and then intercity we will work to reduce. But it's just 20% that side. 80% is reform. What is reform? AG must report to the parliament. Appointment of AG is done through select committee in the parliament. All that thing, right? Now, I believe Tun Mahathir doesn't want that. He wants to leave Malaysia behind in the image that he has created. Okay? So that is number 2. Number 3, the reason that the thing happened was, to my mind, is he wanted his cabinet. He called at that time unity government, but I think what he really meant was Mahathir government. So these are the 3 reasons that resulted in that Sheraton, whatever you want to call it. But while this is being worked out, some others have seen, there's a opportunity, and all hell broke loose. So I think we need to be very, very clear. It is nothing about Malay unity. The ICERT was never in the manifesto. I remember reading the writings. I'm very. The only thing that we wrote was any treaty we will ratify that is doable within the context of Malaysia, that is suitable for Malaysia. We never said ICERT, right? But it was used. So we need to be very mindful how people brand unity government, Malay unity, and this and that for their own narrow parochial political interests. Can this be conveyed to the 30% who's determining the 70% of the parliamentary seat? That's a tough job. And that's why during that time, GE15, we came up with many ideas to reach out to the rural folks. You know, and we did. Alhamdulillah, we did make some inroads. But of course, the recent history, we see Najib is being celebrated as a hero, despite he's a convicted criminal, and Zahid and, you know, the others. So long, the process, that's why when people talked about, I was in the forming of the Rasuah Busters. You know, we wrote the initial paperwork and everything for Rasuah Busters. I made research. And one of the important things that I stressed at that time, anti-hopping law, right? So that's done, but the anti-hopping law is insufficient for now. At least it will stop the individual hopping, but not the coalition hopping, right? But at least we started somewhere. The other thing that we need to do is we need to go back and look at the constituencies, how it is gerrymandered for decades, how 5,000 voters have one parliamentary seat in parliament in Putrajaya, and 165,000 voters also have one parliamentary seat from Tambun. I think this anomaly has to be addressed. So far, this has not been addressed. The possibility of having this kind of problem will go on.
But I think we are all well aware to address that anomaly, we need a lot of political conviction and will in the parliament and etc.
And how to do that? The people have to go and vote it right. The power is in the hand of the people. If the people today wants a better country, better system, a better everything for them, a better Malaysia, go do your responsibility.
Yeah, I think both, right, sort of like sum it all up. It's all in our hands, the future of this nation. Professor, you have something to add on?
No, just not just voting, okay? As I said, this country education system is really, you know, not educating what I call the dignity of the citizen. And dignity is about democracy. And it is not taught that you are the owners of the country, okay? That these are, the wakil rakyat is your servant and the kaki tangan awam is your servant. This is not taught at all. So unless and until the young people understand that they are the owners, then only baru they will they will show some responsibility. If not, they will say, oh, just this party and that party, and then that's about it. So that is one thing. The other thing too is also knowing what you actually want. Okay, and a lot of people don't know what they want, or what they want is only for them and their own race or their own. I mean, being an adult means that you can empathize with other adults. You can empathize a sadness or being hurt when somebody name call and things like that. Saying that no, it's only for my religion and for my faith and my race, and that is all. I think you better check your spirituality, because that is certainly not the real aspect of what we call awakening or iman, yeah, and these things. So the education certainly has to go away from this industry-based education and teach a more holistic human coexistence in a global construct, not just in the Malaysia construct. And that is where I think this is where, and I keep saying that even though, whatever government comes up, if we decide to change, if the media like Sinar Harian with the Rasuah Busters and Sinchiew calling in all these forums and things like that is the real change. And I think this is the power, the real power of democracy, not just this voting. Okay, you own the country, as I said, your country, your fault. Okay, and this is the real message, I think, that everybody must understand.
I think we have a good 1 hour discussion. Many things were actually touched and discussed. I think it's fair. I mean, I think what I'm hearing is we need to take things in our hand. Be it go and cast your vote, cast it properly, make informed decision. That's really good, or to build a nation that you want, or to participate in the change that you want, to create the change that you want. And I think it's all in us to do that. Thank you very much, Dato'. Thank you very much, Professor. It has been a great evening. Thank you so much. Thank you.